Welcome to the Handyman Pros Radio Show. Home improvement repair and maintenance tips from the pros. This episode, Color Your World. Larry here with another edition of Handyman Pros Radio Show. This edition titled Color Your World. To help explain, I'm here with my buddy John. John, how's it going today?
Oh, it's going great, Larry. How are you doing?
I am unbelievable. You know why I say that? You know why I say that?
Happy guy.
Do you know why I say unbelievable?
I guess I will learn.
Because it covers it both ways, buddy.
Okay.
Good or bad. That's right. Unbelievable. Trust me. All right. John, what are we talking about today? It's Color Your World. What does that mean?
So today, let's talk about painting. I mean, it's one of those chores I like to think of for myself if I'm doing it myself.
I like to think of it as somebody else doing it for me, but anyway.
Exactly. It's one of those things that honestly, I know there's folks out there that like to do it, but it's not one of my things. I don't like to do it. I kind of just.
You don't like to do it, just like I don't.
Boring.
Yeah, it's a task, right?
It's a task.
It's not enjoyable.
It's a task. But so I can give you, we can have this discussion, and I can give some tips about it now.
Yeah.
And
but painting's important, right? Because it's
very
actually
important.
It makes your house look really good.
And it's one of the most important things, especially for you're living in it, or you're selling the home, or you're renting the house.
All of the above.
It's one of those things that makes a big difference.
So let's qualify this. We're going to talk about some general painting tips, but we also mostly we're going to talk about interior painting. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay.
That is correct.
So I just wanted to clarify that, because now some of these tips are going to apply to exterior painting as well, but initially we wanted to talk about interior painting. So where are we at, John?
Well, I think that, let's start from the top. Now we just said, it's important. It's always nice to have a new painted house. You get to choose your own colors. Makes your house a whole different, personality. But you have to start somewhere, and that's preparation.
Preparation, right? So one of the things when we think about preparation is what do your walls actually look like, right? So
That's right.
Both you and I have worked on some really old houses that have lath and plaster and things like that, and those walls can be very uneven and unlevel. But even in a modern house with modern drywall, have you ever run on a job, John? Have you ever been on a job where somebody's punched a hole in the wall or knocked a hole in the wall, whatever, and done a poor repair job?
Absolutely, and honestly, it's now is the time, folks. If you've got all those holes in your wall, whether they're nail holes, screw holes,
Whatever.
just dents, dings.
Yeah, dents and dings.
Now is the time to really fix that up, and that is doing some wallboard work. Getting some mud, getting all those kind of things, and making a nice smooth wall out of it before you even start.
So what products would you use? Just just go through it so that our listeners can understand. Like if you're doing qualify it. So big hole, small hole, qualify it. Pinholes. What would you fix a pinhole with?
Well, when we were at college, that was just like toothpaste, right?
Paint doesn't stick through all the toothpaste, though.
So honestly, when you're doing it, you can use anything from a very light spackle that'll dry pretty quick to actual drywall
mud, yeah.
Which comes in a variety of things. We won't go in and elaborate on the different kinds of drywall mud right now. We'll have a different show on that. But it's a little bit of an art form, but for small projects, anybody can do it. Anybody can do it.
And
so you can buy a tub of this stuff. You just get it out of the can with a spatula.
Spackle versus drywall. How big a hole are we talking about? Say somebody's drilled some holes in the wall for a wall anchor. Is that say it's a 1/4-inch hole? Is that spackle or drywall?
Well, that's $1
million question, right?
There is a thing. I meant to say putty knife and knives, not spatula earlier, but that is one of those you're kind of on the border, right? And there's all kinds of characteristics about something like that. So if you use the wrong product, it's going to shrink. It's going to dent in. It's going to shrink in. So if you always try to use a decent wallboard mud, you're going to be okay.
You're going to be okay. The downsides to the wallboard mud are dry time generally, correct?
It depends upon which one you use.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to go around your house and you've got a bunch of little ones, little holes, or a little larger than little holes, if that makes sense, use what they term as a hot mud, something that'll kick off within 20 minutes. You can buy a bag of this stuff, and you're good to go. You can go around your room, fix these things, and then when you get done with doing all that, 20-30 minutes later, you come back and lightly sand it and make it smooth
and ready for paint. Yep.
And ready for paint. But now is the time to do it. If after you get through painting,
it's too late.
It's too late.
Yeah.
And you're going to wish you. Now I will say also that it depends upon what kind of paint that you have in terms of low gloss, satin, matte, to a higher gloss. The higher the gloss, the more everything shows up. It's like a car. You go to that extreme, every little thing is going to show up.
That's why I always paint my cars in flat.
In flat, yeah.
I like the primer look.
With a roller.
Hey, you figured me out.
I've seen your car. So that's some of the considerations. A lot of times, you're going to use after you get done prepping, so you're going to have to. And I bring this up now in the show because it's one of those things you have to think about because you really do want to do a good job of prepping. For instance, if you're in a kitchen and you want to use like an eggshell that's easier to clean because matte isn't, then just know that everything's going to show.
Right.
And you're going to really want to put some effort into really prepping that wall.
So this is just this is an observation I've seen. Preparation with the finished product, right? Mm-hmm. What is the most significant thing to the finished product? Meaning how the walls look. To me, it's always how somebody preps the wall.
And it's always that way. It's always that way because now, like I say, I was a painter, I did auto body repair. I painted professionally as a aircraft in the airlines, and it's always about preparation because if that's not done right, you're going to show. It's going to show everything, and you're going to say you wish you did. So most of the time, it's always spent with preparation.
So there's one other thing too. So it's a combination of preparation, but and I'm going to do a food analogy. It's like making a meal, right? So it's preparation, but it's also ingredients, right? So we need to talk a little bit about the paint itself.
That's very important. What I've found after doing a lot of interior painting and paint, it is I wish I would have used a better paint, to tell you the truth.
Right.
Now, the better paints, they're going to cost more, but you're going to get more. They're going to cover better. In terms of if you're going to go over a dark surface with a light paint, you're going to be doing it a bunch of times.
Right.
So even though the paint costs more, you might be able to get away with one or two coats on something like that, whereas you might be there for a week, going over it 3 or 4 times, and it's just you're going to hate yourself. The other thing is the durability and the washability of these good paints. You're going to wish that you put something decent on the walls, because if you get something on them, like a dog, throw with everything flying around and spit and everything going around with it, shaking themselves off or whatever. You're going to wish that you had something good that you can get off. You can wipe the walls off without taking all the paint off.
So what we didn't discuss here, and I just thought about it for a second, is we didn't talk about priming. So give me a breakdown on priming. So priming goes on before the paint goes on.
That's right. So when it's a good rule of thumb. After you get done with prepping and getting your the walls all smooth and everything, is to put a primer on. Now a lot of the new paints act as a primer as well. So you can get away with just going right into painting. If you have raw wallboard, okay, if you just built out a basement or something, you have a raw wall.
Repair, say you took out a square piece,
that's
something
right.
like that.
That's right, and you have that paper there on a piece of wallboard. You got to prime it. You've got to prime it. And there's certain primers for that. They're very inexpensive, but they're going to seal that paper up, and that way, when you go, the paint sticks and it just goes on a whole lot better, and a lot quicker.
So one other question, just while we're on primers too. So there's products out there like Kills and all the manufacturers make them, but they are what they call stain hiding primers,
Right.
correct? And so if you have a water stain or any kind of stain on the wall, really, it doesn't
Right.
matter what it is. I've always used a Kills type product, or Dennis Zinsser makes them, or whatever their
Right.
names are. There's a whole bunch of different brands, but I paint that over it. That really seals out that
That's
stain,
right.
and it doesn't allow it to bleed through.
Right.
And even on bare wood, you were out on a
Right.
job with me the other day, and you were pointing out the fact that
Right.
they didn't use a primer on the bare wood
Right.
because the knots bled through.
The knots bleed, and that's something that you need to take a look at if you're gonna repaint, trim. Okay, for instance, mantles around your fireplace. Those are usually made of scrap wood. Most people don't know that. That's all the wood that the guys leave around at the when they build your house, and they so that's all
Is that
pine.
why mine fell apart?
That's maybe.
Anyway, I had to throw it out.
And so that's something that you need to be aware of, is that pine, those knots are going to bleed.
They bleed through.
And Larry, you're exactly right. You need to seal those.
Yeah. Yep. So then we go to adding the paint. So we had talked quite a bit about paints, and that paints are one of those items that you do get what you pay for. Is that correct?
In my opinion, yes. A good paint is going to go on better. It's going to cover better. It's going to save you a lot of time. It's going to be more expensive, but it's going to save you a lot of time.
And it
in
lasts
painting.
longer.
It's going to last longer. It's going to be more durable. It's going to be the scrubbability on it. These are the kind of things you look out at. How many years that you're going to live with, that you want to live with that color inside your house, which could be 5, 10, more years.
So I just bought a brand new house. I didn't, but I just bought a brand new house.
You did?
And no.
Oh,
and they
definitely.
painted the walls. So your estimation on the contractor grade paints, the paints that the contractors use in general terms.
If it's cheap, they look okay for the first couple years, and they just start to deteriorate.
Yep. And that would be my experience as well. Flippers are notorious for this. Notorious for buying the cheapest. They put it up,
Yep.
looks great. It's kind of, as we like to say, lipstick on a pig here in the South.
Yep.
They paint the pig, they put the
Yep.
lipsticks on. She looks
Yep.
beautiful for a few minutes, and that's about it.
Yep.
So I just caution you, just because you bought a new house or had a house remodeled or anything, it doesn't necessarily mean they use the best ingredients to fix up the product. So anyway, that's a little aside. So we put the paint on. What sort of application techniques are there for paint, John? Because there's several different ways, and what's, in your opinion, what are the best ways to do it?
Well, if you're going to do it inside, we've seen some things from the field where guys have come in and sprayed the walls on an interior, and sprayed over everything, and sprayed the ceiling, sprayed the flooring. I just didn't, I didn't understand that. To me, that's a way to get in and get out so fast and collect your money and go.
Yeah.
But for a quality job, you're going to roll and you're going to brush.
You're going to roll and
And
brush.
you're going to now this is interior. Okay,
Right.
we're talking about interior.
Right.
We're not throwing paint and spray paint and overspray everywhere. We're talking about rolling and roll a nice thick coat out. And there is techniques on how to do it. So you always want to roll into into the wet and not dry paint.
So you brought up an interesting thing about painting over switches and light covers and things like that. And I take this back. This is one of my pet peeves when I see out in the field. So John and I both work as handymen. You all know that. But we work in the field as handymen. And some of my favorite pet peeves, if I'm watching a guy getting ready to paint, is he doesn't take 5 seconds to take the screws out of an outlet cover and take the outlet cover off.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yep.
And then they don't want to tape anything. They don't put drop claws down. They don't
Right.
do any of that kind of preparation.
Right.
And again, we're talking about in either a remodel or an existing home that already exists.
Right.
This isn't in new construction, right?
Right.
And I go in and I can tell a lot about a painter. If the guy, first thing off the bat, if I don't see him with the tape and a plastic or some kind of drop claws or something going all over the house,
Yeah.
I will never recommend that guy.
Yeah.
The second thing is if he won't take the short amount of time it takes to take those outlet covers, because I have houses myself, rental houses that we have, where somebody took the roller and they went right over
Right.
everything. Drives me crazy. And it's
Right.
impossible to get off
Yeah.
effectively.
Right.
So it ends up costing me all kinds of money. And then I've seen other guys who want to cut in they call it cutting in, where they take a fine brush and they trim up along the
And you
edges.
can't, and you, in all fairness, you can. Okay, professional painters can do that, and there's techniques to do that with scoring. We can talk about this further, but you know, a good professional painter, they can cut in and do a good job. Make no mistake about that. But painting over all the covers and, you know, slopping paint on your carpet and the floor and things like that. I actually experienced where they actually went around a house and put paint cans as they walked around and put paint cans on the floor.
Round circles.
Nice. Right? And then the guys came in right after that and polyed the floor.
Over the circles?
Over the circles.
Nice work. So this is a show we're going to do in the future.
So,
you know, we've got whole shows lined up on what to look for and what not to look for. Anyway,
right.
Amazing stuff. What else is there about painting in that we need to know about, John?
You know, I think you know when you look at when you're looking at the whole job overall, I think it's from, you know, just a project management too. A big painting job. Let's say you're going to do your you know, your house, your whole house inside, or you're going to do a big room. Sometimes it can be daunting, right? You got to start somewhere though.
Right.
You know, you got to move the furniture out. You got to take down stuff off the walls. You know, you got to prep. But you have to start somewhere. So cover things up. Think like paint. Where can I get behind things? You know, where can I drip? You know, all those kind of things. I know it sounds a little silly, but you know, when you look at it that way, you're gonna cover things up that and maybe tape around some things that you didn't think that, you know, where paint could get in. Or discolor, you know, flooring or carpet, or, you know, almost impossible to get off. You know, choose a good quality paint. Get some nice tools, rollers, brushes, and I would also say don't go cheap on things like that.
Right, better quality, especially brushes.
Brushes and rollers are really, really important. More important than most people think. Really high quality nap rollers and high quality brushes make a huge difference, especially when we're just talking about cutting in or doing some trim and things like that. Can save you a ton of time, and the outcome is drastically better than cheaper ones because of brush marks and trails and things like that.
Awesome. All right, what else we got?
Well, I would want to say one other thing about repairs. Mm-hmm. One is, you know, matching colors.
Ooh, yeah, matching colors.
So if we're going to talk quickly about it, repairing a hole in the wall, there's two things here, folks, is what you want to remember. You know, if you've already painted that wall, make sure that you store the paint codes. Every can of paint that you get these days has a code on the top, and that's the formulation of what that paint is. Take a picture of that, store it in a file somewhere called paint, you know, on your drives or, you know, on your computer, so that you can always go back and reference it. If you don't have that paint, you just came into a house and, you know, there's a repair that you want to make, go down to a good paint supply place and take something with that color on it with you. Probably about, if you can get something about 2 inches by 2 inches, take it down there. They can really do a good job of matching that paint. It's
Boy, John,
incredible.
that sounds like our tip of the week.
And that could be
the tip of the week. All right. Well, we're going to have a little bit more on this coming up. We've actually got a tip and trick that we're going to explain in one of the next segments that'll be a part of this show, but we'll see you then. So this week's tip of the week has to do with painting. So, John, we had discussed the fact that you're out there and you've painted with everything, and we talked about some really nice tools, about having good brushes and good rollers. So I wanted to bring out a tip of the week, and this has to do with cleaning up. One of the tools that I found to be the most effective is called it's a spinner. It's basically a tool that you put a brush or a roller on, and it's got a way that it spins it at a high speed. It throws all the paint off. Have you ever used one of these?
I have.
Yeah, works great. Keeps your brushes clean, gets most of the paint out, not all of it, but gets most of the paint out, and basically helps you save money. It also saves a ton of time when it comes to cleaning. You don't get the nap in, the brush doesn't get all gunked up with paint, and the nap and the rollers get spun out too. So that's going to be the tip of the week. Go out and buy yourself a spinner.
From questions at HandymanProsRadioshow.com this week, we received a question from Bill B.
So Bill writes, I'm trying to get a straight line on the wall, and I put tape up, but when I pull the tape off after I've painted over it, it comes out all blurry and uneven. Do you have a tip or trick that can fix this?
Yeah, that's a good one. And a lot of people will do their own designs and things on a wall where you want to separate a couple of colors. And one of the things that happens is that that's commonly known as a bleed through.
It's a bleed through, right?
So if you run a piece of tape across the wall, there is tricks to keep that tape straight across a long distance too. But when you're doing these kind of things, always squeegee the tape down against the wall.
And what would you suggest using to do that squeegeeing?
Yeah, so an old credit card, or even better is like a hotel key card, something that's very flexible, but you can still get some pressure on the tape where you're going to, that edge of that tape across the length of the run. That way, you can use some decent blue tape. You don't have to go buy the real expensive stuff, but you're going to get good performance out of blue tape, and the paint will not bleed under.
So you're giving me another use for my hotel credit card, my hotel key cards, right? I've been using them for window scrapers all these years for snow and ice. Now I have another use. I can take it and actually tape and run it down my blue line. Just to reiterate, we run it right down the blue line. It's going to adhere that tape really tightly up against the walls.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Right.
And so that when we paint, we don't get the bleed through.
That's correct.
Underneath the tape.
Right.
Awesome. Right. That's absolutely awesome. I believe we have a blog post written about that, and I know you can find that at HandymanProsRadioshow.com under the blogging section. Any other tips for stopping this kind of thing, John?
No, that's, when Bill B was, asking that question, that was the first thing that came to mind. I've just seen it before. I've seen so many people, they try to, pull a line across their wall, and it just bleeds through, and it's a common occurrence, and a lot of people don't know how to, to really stop it.
So where did you learn this tip?
Yeah, so I learned that when I was an aircraft painter at Eastern Airlines for a number of years, and that was one of the tricks that
you wanted the lines to be straight.
Straight's a whole different thing, but you can't have bleed through. It just looks awful. And by the way, this is how it's done in automotive too.
Same way with automotive.
Right. Sometimes there's a two color, and my lead man, he was a real professional painter. He was a really great guy, and he used to actually use Scotch tape because it's the thickness of the tape that can make a difference between when two colors meet.
Wow, so Scotch tape. I've never heard of that one. I don't think I'd try that
because it's thinner than a masking tape.
Yeah, I get that part.
So, anyways.
All right, perfect.
All righty.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's edition of Handyman Pros Radio Show. John, any parting shots on this week on the painting show?
No, I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to the next show.
All right, baby. Go out and color your world.
See y'all.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you've enjoyed this podcast and have derived some value from it, here's 4 things you can do. 1, tell your friends about this podcast. 2, hit subscribe on your podcast player. While you're there, leave a review. Feedback is so helpful. 3, subscribe to our newsletter by going to HandymanProsRadioshow.com and click on the subscribe button. We'll inform you of upcoming events, shows, and give you actionable tips for maintaining your home and property. 4, send us an email with your questions to questions@HandymanProsRadioshow.com. That's handymanprosradioshow.com. That's our show for this week. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week on the Handyman Pros Radio Show.